I need to tell you something that has kept me awake for the last 72 hours, something that violates every assumption we've made about the nature of matter, time, and the boundaries of physical law. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me if you've noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently. NASA isn't asking this lightly. What I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. A celestial object was detected by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System in Hawaii. We cataloged it as 3I Atlas, the third interstellar visitor ever recorded. It was traveling at over 100,000 miles per hour, a speed that suggested it had originated from beyond our solar system, beyond the gravitational influence of our sun. We thought we understood what it was. We were wrong. For years, 3I Atlas moved through our solar system like a ghost, silent, predictable, unremarkable in every observable way except for its origin. My colleagues and I tracked it with passive curiosity. After all, interstellar objects aren't entirely new to us. Oumuamua stunned the world with its bizarre acceleration and cigar-like shape. Then came Borisov, a comet that behaved exactly as we expected. 3I Atlas seemed to fit neatly into this emerging catalog of cosmic wanderers. Just another icy traveler passing through the suburbs of our star. But 3 months ago, everything changed. It began with an anomaly so subtle that most astronomers dismissed it as instrumental noise. A research team at the European Southern Observatory was conducting routine spectral analysis when they noticed something impossible. 3I Atlas was emitting particles. Not the typical dust or gas you'd expect from a comet under solar heating. These particles had a signature that didn't match anything in our database. Their quantum spin states were inverted. Their mass fluctuated in ways that violated conservation laws. And most disturbing of all, they seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously before collapsing into a single state upon observation. I was brought into a classified briefing 2 weeks later. The room was filled with physicists, astrobiologists, representatives from NASA, the Department of Defense, and intelligence agencies I'd never heard of. The lead scientist, a woman I'd known for 30 years, looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. It was fear, pure, unfiltered existential fear. She showed me the data. These particles weren't just anomalous. They were impossible. Their atomic structure resembled nothing that should exist in our universe under current conditions. The arrangement suggested engineering at the subatomic level, a level of technological sophistication that would require civilizations millions, perhaps billions of years more advanced than us. But here's what kept me awake that night, and every night since. These particles weren't behaving like remnants or debris. They were behaving like a message. When our quantum computers analyzed the distribution patterns, they found mathematical sequences embedded in the particle decay rates, prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, and then something we'd never seen before, a geometric progression that corresponded exactly to the fundamental constants of our universe: the speed of light, Planck's constant, the fine structure constant. Whatever released these particles knew the deepest laws governing our reality and was using them as a language. That was the moment I realized we were no longer alone. We had never been alone. But the message itself was what shattered everything we thought we knew. When the sequences were fully decoded using quantum entanglement analysis, a technique we'd only theorized about in classified research, they revealed a warning. Not in English or any human language, but in pure mathematics, the only truly universal language. The translation, if you can call it that, suggested that 3I Atlas wasn't a natural object at all. It was a probe, a reconnaissance device, and it had been observing us. Let me be clear about what I mean by observing. This wasn't passive data collection. The particles contained information about Earth that we had never broadcast into space. Detailed analysis of our atmospheric composition from the pre-industrial era to now, population density maps accurate to within tens of thousands of individuals, and most chilling, records of our nuclear tests dating back to 1945, cataloged with precision that suggested real-time monitoring. Someone out there has been watching us for at least 80 years. Watching, recording, and now for reasons we don't understand, they've chosen to reveal themselves. Not through direct contact, not through a dramatic appearance over our cities, but through a subtle release of impossible particles from an object millions of miles away, particles that only our most advanced instruments could detect. This is a message meant for a civilization that has reached a specific threshold of technological capability. We just crossed that threshold, and they knew we would. The question that paralyzed everyone in that briefing room was simple and terrifying. Why now? Why reveal themselves at this particular moment in human history? I've spent 50 years studying the cosmos, trying to understand our place in the vast machinery of existence. I've spoken about alien civilizations with casual confidence, explaining to audiences around the world that the universe is so large, so old, that intelligent life must be common. I've calculated the probabilities, discussed the Drake equation, theorized about galactic civilizations. But I always imagined first contact as a moment of triumph, a cosmic handshake between equals. I never imagined it would feel like this, like we're children who've been caught doing something dangerous and the adults have finally decided to intervene. 3 weeks ago, 3I Atlas released a second burst of particles. This time, the message was different. The mathematical sequences described something that shook the foundations of our understanding of cosmic sociology. They described a quarantine. According to the decoded information, our galaxy isn't the lawless frontier I'd always imagined. It's organized, governed. There are rules, protocols, boundaries that civilizations are expected to respect once they reach certain developmental milestones. Earth, it seems, has been inside a protected zone, a kind of cosmic nursery where young civilizations are allowed to evolve without interference. We've been developing under observation, studied like bacteria in a petri dish, until we reach the point where we could potentially become a threat to ourselves or others. That point was nuclear fission. The moment we split the atom, we announced to the galaxy that we possess the power to destroy ourselves and potentially, if we ever achieved interstellar travel, to threaten others. We've been on probation ever since. And the probe, 3I Atlas, was sent to assess whether we would survive our own technological adolescence or self-destruct like so many species before us. The implications are staggering. This means the Fermi paradox, the question of why we haven't seen evidence of alien civilizations, despite the high probability of their existence, has an answer. We haven't seen them because they're deliberately hiding from us, not out of malice, but as policy, as protocol. Young civilizations like ours are isolated, contained, observed from a distance until we prove we can handle the responsibility of cosmic citizenship, or until we fail. But here's what truly haunts me. The second message didn't just describe the quarantine. It indicated that a decision point is approaching. Within the next 30 years, possibly sooner, humanity will either be welcomed into the galactic community or will be left to our fate. And our fate, if we fail the test, won't involve invasion or conquest. It will involve something far more absolute. Abandonment. The galaxy will simply write us off as another failed experiment and continue without us. What does it take to pass this test? The message provided guidance, though it was abstract, philosophical, rather than prescriptive. It spoke of unity, not in language, but in mathematical representations of game theory and complex systems. It showed us scenarios where civilizations that learned to cooperate, to prioritize collective survival over tribal competition, thrived and joined the galactic network. It showed us scenarios where civilizations that remained fractured, addicted to conflict and zero-sum thinking, consumed themselves in wars, environmental collapse, or technological disasters. We were shown our own reflection in cosmic statistics, and the reflection was not encouraging. Then the signal stopped. For 11 days, 3I Atlas went completely silent. No particle emissions, no quantum anomalies. It simply moved through space on its original trajectory, heading toward the outer solar system and eventually back into interstellar space. We thought perhaps the encounter was over, that we'd been given our warning and now the universe would return to indifferent silence. But then, 6 days ago, something unprecedented happened. 3I Atlas changed course. Interstellar objects don't do this. They follow ballistic trajectories determined by gravitational interactions and their initial velocity. They don't perform powered maneuvers. They don't alter their path mid-journey. But 3I Atlas did. Using a propulsion method that produced no visible exhaust, no thermal signature, no detectable reaction mass, it adjusted its trajectory. It's now on a path that will bring it into a stable orbit around Jupiter. It's not leaving, it's staying. It's taking up a permanent observation post in our solar system. Every space agency in the world is currently tracking it around the clock. We've mobilized every available telescope, every satellite, every sensor we have, not just to observe, but to prepare, because we don't know what comes next. Is this a permanent monitoring station? Is it waiting for us to make a choice? Is it counting down to some form of intervention? We simply don't know. And that uncertainty is perhaps the most psychologically difficult aspect of all of this. I've received calls from government officials asking me to explain what this means for national security. Military strategists want to know if this represents a threat. Religious leaders have contacted me seeking to understand the theological implications. And everyday people, thousands of them, have written to me asking the simplest and most profound question: what should we do? I don't have a clear answer, but I have a hypothesis, one that's grounded in everything I understand about physics, evolution, and the nature of intelligence. I believe we're living through a cosmic inflection point, a moment where humanity is being evaluated not by our military capabilities or economic power, but by our consciousness, by our ability to recognize ourselves as one species sharing one planet in a universe filled with other minds. The test isn't whether we can build faster spaceships or more powerful weapons. The test is whether we can mature beyond the tribal psychology that served us in our evolutionary past, but now threatens our future. Think about what makes a civilization ready for contact with others. It's not technology alone. Technology without wisdom is just sophisticated barbarism. A species that's intelligent enough to build nuclear weapons, but not wise enough to refrain from using them, is dangerous to everyone, including themselves. A species that can manipulate genes, but lacks the ethical framework to do so responsibly, is a threat to the biosphere. We're being evaluated on wisdom, not cleverness. And wisdom requires something that's exceedingly rare in the universe: genuine collective consciousness. This isn't mysticism, it's mathematics. Complex systems theory shows us that intelligence at scale requires cooperation, communication, and coordination across vast networks. A galactic civilization wouldn't be a collection of competing empires constantly at war. It would be an integrated network of minds sharing information and resources, unified not by force, but by mutual recognition that cooperation yields outcomes superior to competition. Earth hasn't achieved that yet. We're still fragmented into nearly 200 nation-states, thousands of ethnic groups, countless ideological factions, all competing for resources, status, and survival. From a galactic perspective, we must look like cells in an organism that hasn't yet developed a nervous system. We're alive, we're active, but we're not coherent. The particles from 3I Atlas contained one more piece of information that I haven't shared publicly until now. It showed us images, not photographs, but quantum reconstructions of possible futures. Parallel timelines representing different developmental pathways Earth might take. In some of them, we were shown versions of Earth 30 years from now where the atmosphere had been stabilized, where energy was abundant and clean, where global cooperation had led to the elimination of poverty and the expansion of human knowledge beyond anything we currently imagine. We saw versions of ourselves exploring not just our solar system, but the galaxy, welcomed by civilizations ancient beyond comprehension, sharing in technologies and philosophies that elevated human consciousness to levels we can barely conceive. But we were also shown the alternatives, timelines where Earth in 30 years was a wasteland, where runaway climate change had triggered social collapse, where nuclear exchange or biological warfare had reduced our population by billions, where artificial intelligence, developed without adequate safeguards, had optimized the world in ways that excluded human thriving. These weren't predictions, they were probabilities, quantum potentials that exist simultaneously, waiting for our choices to collapse them into reality. This is the true message of 3i Atlas. We're not passengers in the story of cosmic evolution. We're participants. The universe isn't indifferent to our survival. At least the intelligent minds within it aren't indifferent. They've developed systems, protocols, methods of guiding young species toward maturity. But the guidance has limits. Free will, even for civilizations, is apparently sacred. They'll show us the paths. They'll provide warnings, but they won't force our hand. The choice remains ours. I've been thinking a great deal about consciousness lately. Not human consciousness specifically, but consciousness as a universal phenomenon. Physics tells us that the universe began as pure energy, formless and homogeneous. Over billions of years, that energy organized itself into structures of increasing complexity. Stars, planets, molecules, cells, neurons, minds. Each level of organization emerged from the one before it, adding new properties that couldn't be predicted from the lower level alone. This is emergence, and intelligence is just another emergent property, one that appears when matter organizes itself in certain configurations. But here's the profound implication that keeps me awake. If intelligence is emergent, if consciousness arises naturally from complex organization, then the universe itself might be in the process of becoming conscious. Not metaphorically, but literally. Every intelligent species, every civilization, every network of minds might be neurons in a cosmic brain that's slowly waking up. We're not separate from the universe. We're how the universe knows itself. And contact with other intelligent species isn't just meeting aliens, it's the universe's disparate parts recognizing each other as fragments of a greater whole. 3. iAtlas might be an invitation to join that process, to become part of something larger than our species, larger than our planet, larger than our current ability to comprehend. But invitations can be declined. We can choose isolation. We can choose to remain fragmented, competitive, uncoordinated. We can choose to burn our resources fighting each other while the universe moves on without us. That choice is genuinely available to us. Free will operates at every scale. The scientific community is divided on how to respond. Some argue we should remain silent, avoid drawing attention, continue observing without engaging. Others believe we should actively attempt communication, send our own signals back to 3i Atlas, prove our willingness to join the galactic community. The governments of the world are attempting to coordinate a unified response, but as you might imagine, unity doesn't come easily to us. We're still arguing about who should speak for Earth, what message we should send, whether we should send anything at all. Meanwhile, 3i Atlas orbits Jupiter silently, waiting. I've recommended patience, not because I lack courage, but because I believe the message has already been sent. Our behavior is the message. How we treat each other, how we manage our planet, how we develop our technology, how we evolve our consciousness, this is what's being observed. Words are cheap. Actions reveal truth, and our actions for the past 80 years since we first split the atom have been a mixed message at best. Moments of breathtaking cooperation and compassion interspersed with horrifying violence and short-sighted exploitation. We're a species in transition, caught between our evolutionary past and our cosmic future. And we're being graded on a curve we didn't know existed until 3 months ago. There's a concept in evolutionary biology called punctuated equilibrium. It describes how species often remain relatively stable for long periods, then undergo rapid change during brief windows of environmental pressure. I believe humanity is in such a window right now. The pressure isn't coming from predators or climate, not primarily. It's coming from ourselves, from the technologies we've created that now threaten to either liberate us or destroy us, from the weapons we've built that could end civilization in hours, from the environmental damage we've caused that could make Earth uninhabitable within generations, and now from the knowledge that we're being watched, evaluated, that our cosmic future depends on choices we make in the near term. This is unprecedented pressure, and it requires an unprecedented response, not from governments alone, not from scientists or religious leaders or any single group. It requires a shift in collective consciousness. It requires millions of individual humans choosing to think beyond their immediate self-interest, beyond their tribal loyalties, beyond their national borders. It requires us to recognize ourselves as Earth's consciousness, as the way this planet knows itself and shapes its future. That recognition is rare, but it's not impossible. History shows us moments when humans transcended their limitations, when collective action achieved what seemed impossible. The eradication of smallpox, the Apollo program, the global response to the ozone crisis. We're capable of coordination when we choose to be. The question is whether we'll choose it now when it matters most. I want to share something personal. Last week I stood outside at night and looked up at Jupiter. You can see it right now if you know where to look, that bright star that doesn't twinkle in the southern sky. And I thought about 3i Atlas up there, silently observing, recording, reporting back to minds I cannot imagine. And I felt something I'd never felt before when looking at the stars. I felt seen, not as an individual, but as a member of a species, as a representative of Earth. And with that feeling came a profound sense of responsibility. We're not just living our lives anymore. We're auditioning for a role in the cosmic community. Everything we do is part of that audition. How we treat refugees at our borders, how we respond to pandemics, how we develop artificial intelligence, how we manage climate change, how we speak to each other online and in person. It all matters, not because there's some galactic judge keeping score, but because these behaviors reveal what kind of civilization we are. And that revelation determines what kind of future we're invited into. This might sound overwhelming. It might sound like too much responsibility for one species, one generation. But consider the alternative. Consider living in a universe where we're alone, where there's no one watching, no one caring whether we survive or self-destruct. Consider the existential loneliness of that scenario. At least now we know we matter. Our survival isn't just significant to us, it's significant to others. We're part of a larger story, and that story is still being written. The particles from 3i Atlas are still being analyzed. Every day we extract new information, decode new patterns. There are layers to this message we haven't fully understood yet. References to physics beyond our current models, hints about the nature of consciousness that could revolutionize neuroscience, mathematical proofs that solve problems we've struggled with for centuries. It's as if they're showing us just enough to prove their existence and capabilities, but holding back the truly transformative knowledge until we prove we're ready for it. This is teaching methodology. It's how you educate a developing mind. You don't give them all the answers immediately. You give them puzzles, challenges, problems that stretch their abilities without breaking them. You guide without controlling. You inspire without overwhelming. Someone out there understands pedagogy at a cosmic scale. And we're the students. So what happens next? I don't know. Nobody does. But I can tell you what I hope happens. I hope we take this seriously. I hope we recognize this moment for what it is, a chance to choose who we want to be as a species. I hope we find the courage to cooperate, to set aside the ancient grudges and petty competitions that have defined so much of our history. I hope we invest in technologies that enhance life rather than destroy it. I hope we develop wisdom at the same pace we develop knowledge. I hope we prove ourselves worthy of contact, not through grand gestures, but through millions of small choices that collectively reshape our civilization. And I hope you, watching this, recognize your role in this. You're not a passive observer of history. You're a participant in the most important transformation humanity has ever faced. Your choices matter. Your voice matters. Your consciousness is part of Earth's consciousness. And Earth's consciousness is being evaluated right now by minds that have watched civilizations rise and fall for eons. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings, as we track 3i Atlas and interpret each new piece of information it reveals. This isn't entertainment. This is the most important story being told right now, anywhere on this planet. And you deserve to know the truth as we discover it. But I want to leave you with a question, one that I ask myself every night as I look up at that bright point of light orbiting Jupiter. If we're being tested, if our cosmic future depends on demonstrating wisdom and unity, what would you change about humanity right now if you could? What single transformation would prove to watching eyes that we're ready? Because here's the truth that keeps me awake. The answer to that question exists in the collective wisdom of billions of individual humans making better choices. We don't need superhuman abilities. We just need to be consistently, courageously human at our best rather than our worst. What do you think happens when the quarantine ends, when the galaxy decides we've either passed or failed their evaluation? Comment your thoughts below, because this conversation, this collective processing of the most significant revelation in human history might itself be part of the test. Our ability to discuss, to reason, to imagine together, this might be exactly what they're looking for. Evidence that we can think as one species rather than 7 billion isolated individuals. So tell me, what would you say to 3i Atlas if you could send a message back? What would you want them to know about humanity that our actions alone might not reveal? The universe is listening. The question is, what will we say?